Welcome to the P Factor. I'm your host, P. Today we're going to dive into a first round mock draft for the upcoming 2025 NFL draft. I skipped last week's mock draft because my first round ended up being pretty similar to mine from 2 weeks ago, my previous video, which I'll have pinned somewhere up here. But this week my mock's looking pretty different. A lot's changed over the last week or two. A lot of news, a lot of just random things around the league that heat up around beginning of April with the draft coming up every year. So yeah, we'll dive right in. And as always, I appreciate your guys' likes, comments, subscribe, shares, and all that good jazz. And yeah, just keep that up, and I'll keep my side of the deal going with these videos. But yeah, let's switch over right to the draft. Um, so I don't think much is changing for me here at one with Tennessee. I'm gonna stick with them going Cam Ward. Like I've said in previous videos, when you're not guaranteed to be bad enough to have a top 3 pick in a draft, and when you don't have a guy who's your answer at quarterback for the near future, you gotta go quarterback, and just with the number 1 pick, you just take the best guy available in this class. And I do think Cam Ward has the highest potential in this class. It's not the best quarterback class as we know, but keep it simple here. Take Cam Ward, fill in some other holes later in the second, third round, things like that. But yeah, so I'm pretty confident that's how Tennessee's going to approach this draft. And then we go to number 2. So if you've watched my previous drafts, I've been pretty consistent with I don't think Cleveland takes a quarterback. Um, I think that they got money tied up in Deshaun, who obviously blows, but like they have a lot of needs on both sides of the ball, and I think they don't force taking a quarterback here. Kind of just ride it out with what they got right now, and you know, I think with that being said, they go Abdul Carter. Just pair him up with Myles Garrett over there on the D line. You have a division where you're playing Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow twice a year, and you're going to want guys who can go get them. You want to rely on that defense to help out because that offense isn't really good. So you might as well build something that can keep you in games. So yeah, they go Abdul Carter there at 2. And then at 3, I got the Giants taking Travis Hunter. So for me, 2 and 3 are pretty interchangeable. I wouldn't be surprised to see Travis Hunter go 2 and see Abdul Carter go 3. But I think the top 3 goes in this order. A good point is that so the Giants obviously signed Russ along with Jameis, so they have their quarterbacks going into next year. And if they hadn't signed Russ, in my last mock, I had them taking Shador, which I was pretty confident in them doing because they seem to love Shador over there in New York. But now that you have Russ and Jameis, it seems like obviously Dable and Joe are trying to save their jobs and have a good year. So why not build around Russ and Jameis for the year and see how many wins you can scrap and like not get fired? So Travis Hunter here gives them a guy. We don't know if he's going to play wide receiver or corner yet or both, but either way, it's a Heisman Trophy winner, and you're going to stud on either side of the ball, maybe both sides of the ball. So yeah, Travis Hunter at 3, and then that leaves us with the Patriots at 4. So they lose out on both Abdul and Travis because no quarterback went top 3 here. So with that, I think they adjust their O line and go Will Campbell. Their O line is definitely a position of need, and they want to protect Drake May. And Armand Membu's been getting a lot of traction going into this draft, rightfully so. He's got that athletic upside, and he seems to be a really good prospect at the tackle position. And but Will Campbell's been the number 1 tackle prospect in this draft class for months now. I think that won't change going into the draft, and I think he will ultimately be the first tackle taken off the board. I've been seeing a lot of crap about his arm length and stuff, but I think it was something like his arm length puts him at like the 33rd shortest arm length for tackles in this draft or something. But if it was that big of a deal, all these draft gurus and analysts would not have him at the top of their board. So I think that it could be an issue, but I don't think it's an issue where he's not the first tackle taken in this draft. So yeah, the Pats do good there, address a big position of need, and maybe get their guy over there for Drake for years to come. But that's how that goes for the Pats. Then we go to the Jags at 5. And like I've said, I think this Mason Graham pick is destined here. They need to get Josh Hines-Allen some help on that defense. And their interior defensive line on paper looks pretty abysmal. So I think Mason Graham here, you're going to blue chip prospect who is going to be a stud. This is a good building piece for them to get that defensive line back in order, and just try to get this team right this ship. They got pieces on offense and defense. They just need to get more guys around them and get the right coaching staff and everything, and see what they can do. But yeah, Mason Graham at 5, and then we got number 6 here. I think this pick's like kind of locked in, unless we see something surprising come draft day. But Ashton Jeanty here at 6. They get obviously the best running back in this class, generational talent at running back. We all know what he did in college last year. They do not have a capable RB1 on this roster. That argument can be made at multiple positions for this team, but I think when you get a player like Jeanty who you can game plan around and give Geno some relief over there, and just open up the game, you take him right here. And if they don't take him right here, he's not going to last much longer. But that's what we got at 6. And now at 7, we got the Jets. I don't buy the smoke of the Jets liking a quarterback. You gave Justin Fields a pretty hefty 2-year contract, about $20 million a year. You're going to try to win now with him and see what you can do. That's why I don't think with the 7th overall pick they go quarterback. And what I think they end up going here is O-line. And this is where Omar Membu goes. So you have a quarterback who obviously likes to run the ball. You have a running back very capable of running the ball in Breece Hall. You have pretty solid pieces on this team. And with all that, you want a capable tackle that can anchor this O-line down and keep Fields protected back there so he can actually make plays for this team. So with that being said, Omar Membu, solid pick right here for the Jets. And now we get to the Panthers at 8. So as you can see, Shedeur Sanders is still not drafted. So I'm pretty perplexed now with Shedeur because I don't think he's going to the Browns. I don't think he's going to the Giants anymore. And I don't think any of these teams, the Raiders are a dark horse, but I don't think they go with Shedeur considering the extension they just gave Geno. And the fact that Pete Carroll wanted to bring Geno in, I think that's definitely their guy for at least 2 years, barring any injuries. So with that being said, this gets interesting here because according to Vegas, Shedeur Sanders, the Saints have the highest odds of drafting Shedeur Sanders, which makes sense because Derek Carr's got question marks with his health and age. Spencer Rattler, he didn't show too much last year where he could be the successor there. So I do understand why he's the betting favorite to land on the Saints. But with that being said, that means other teams also know that he's a potential pick for the Saints at 9. So that makes 8 a potential trade-up spot for teams who want Shedeur. The thing is, when I'm looking at the draft board, I don't see a lot of teams that would want Shedeur or trade up assets to get Shedeur at least. The only teams I could really, really make a case for are the Seahawks at 18, if they don't have full faith in Darnold. Maybe they think there's a chance he could just be a one-hit wonder last year on the Vikings, so they take some insurance and trade up. I could see the Steelers definitely wanting Shedeur if Rodgers decides to sit out, but I do think Rodgers will come around to playing for the Steelers by draft night because, let's be real, he's got nowhere else to go right now to start, and the Steelers obviously need a quarterback. And I don't think any of the. I know for a fact none of these other teams would trade up to take Shedeur. So the Saints, they make sense. I understand why they're the betting favorites for him. So I think Carolina would listen to offers here if they got another first round pick for next year or a solid capital to trade back, even 10 spots. I think they would listen to it. But for the sake of this video, we're not going to have anyone trade up here, and I'm having the Panthers go Jalen Walker. I've seen too many mocks having them take Ted McMillan. I don't think they do that. Canales has made it pretty clear that they believe in Xavier Legette being their wide receiver 1. They like the guys they have in that locker room. Bryce cooked with this same exact team last year with these same exact receivers. So I think they focus on wide receiver next year if they need to when Thielen's off his contract. But right now they got a dog, Jalen Walker. He's visited Carolina already, and I've seen so many reports linking him to Carolina. He's loved the locker room. The coaches love him. And I think this is a home run pick for the Panthers here and try to fix up that front seven and get a stud that more of an edge than an off ball linebacker, to be honest. But yeah, good pick right there. And then 9. So this is another thing. Like the Saints have had me confused during this whole offseason when it comes to the draft because they could literally go any position except running back, I would argue. But they could go Will Johnson here, which would make a lot of sense. Get a stud in the secondary. They could go Ted McMillan because of Olave's injury history. And they don't really have, I mean, they have Brandon Cooks now and Juwan Johnson at tight end, but they don't really have super big weapons outside of them that will scare defenses, in my opinion. You could take Tyler Warren, but they gave Juwan Johnson a huge 3-year extension, so I don't think they go tight end here. I think they could go Shamar Stewart. Okay, so basically they can go any position, like I said, but for the sake of this video, based on the buzz right now, and like I just mentioned, the Vegas odds, we'll have him taking Shedeur here. Derek Carr has 2 years left on his contract, I believe, and I think if Derek Carr doesn't pan out this year and they like Shedeur more than Rattler when it comes to training camp and everything, they give Shedeur a shot here and maybe you can turn this team around. And again, there's a lot of reports coming out of New Orleans that their coaching staff and front office believes they're in win now mode, which I mean, I think they're delusional for that. I mean, obviously they're not going to say we're trash, but that's how they see the team. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't go quarterback and just try to build on the team they have now. But for this, like I said, for the sake of this mock draft, we'll go Shedeur here. So then we got the Bears here at 10. So I think the Bears are pretty blown the way this board falls because both the 2 best tackles, at least prospect-wise, are gone by 10. Their defense is pretty solid. I think they focus more on the offense here, and I think what they do is they go Tyler Warren. Cole Kmet's on the last year of his contract, I'm pretty sure, and he's good, but he's not Tyler Warren. And this gives you a 2 tight end set and a true stud Kelce type of guy and Kelce type of potential in Tyler Warren for that Ben Johnson offense and give Caleb some more weapons out there. But yeah, so that's what we do here at 10. And then we go to 11, the Niners. So the Niners, I'm pretty confident will either go O-line or defense. They really need to replace some of these guys they lost on defense this year that were like cornerstones to their defense. So they lost Charvarius Ward, and I think they replaced him by going Will Johnson here at 11. I've seen a few mock drafts lately where Jahdae Barron's been going ahead of Will Johnson. And Jahdae Barron is also a great corner, but Will Johnson's been the number 1 corner as a prospect coming to this draft for months now. And I think that stays that way, and ultimately he is the first corner taken. So now we go on to 12, Dallas. And the problem with Dallas is they could definitely use a DeMarcus Lawrence replacement on their D-line, but what they really need is to instill fear back into opposing defenses because right now all you have is CeeDee Lamb. You have Dak, who, like I said, has only CeeDee Lamb to throw the ball to. You lose Brandon Cooks. I don't think Jalen Tolbert is a scary wide receiver 2. And I know for sure Jonathan Mingo is not a reliable wide receiver 2 or 3. You have Jake Ferguson on the last year of his contract. You bring in Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. I don't think that backfield is any scarier than Rico Dowdle was. Rico Dowdle had a great year, and I think Javonte has probably about, if healthy, like another similar production of 1,000-yard season, but nothing crazy. So I think what Dallas does here is address that need of more offense and more threats for Dak. And what they do is they go Ted McMillan. I think Ted McMillan next to CeeDee Lamb would be very scary. And with the healthy Dak, that offense could do some things right there. You got 2 legit wide receivers. One bigger guy, one speedier, smaller guy. It's the perfect combination, 1-2 punch right there. So that's what we got at 12. And then next we go to 13, we got Miami. So I actually have our first trade here. So another note, we still do not have any trades. Every team in the first round, every team still has their own pick in the first round going into this draft. I'm surprised we haven't seen a trade yet. I'm sure we will see one by draft night or definitely on draft night. But here we have our first trade. So we have the Seahawks trading up from 18 to Miami's 13 spot. And a realistic trade I could see them doing is Seattle gives up 18 and they have 2 second round picks, so they give up the 50th overall pick, their first second round pick for Miami's 13th overall pick. And that gives the Seahawks the ability to address a huge weakness on this team right now, which is their O-line. So the reason I have them jumping up is because Miami also could address their O-line by taking a tackle. And by the Seahawks giving Miami some extra draft capital, I think that warrants or convinces them to move back 5 spots and still get a good player. And this lets them jump ahead of Indy, who could go tackle, and any other team, even the Bengals or any other team that might want to trade up here and take a tackle. They just secure their guy here, and that's Kelvin Banks. So you obviously have Will Campbell and Membu going 1 and 2 at the tackle position, but Kelvin Banks is also a solid tackle prospect and very worthy of going in the first half of this first round. So that's what we got here at 13. Seattle does the right thing, tries to get that O-line back on track, and this is a good way to start that. So next we got Indy, and Indianapolis needs a few things. They need players on defense, especially that front 7. They could definitely use a tight end. They're definitely blown. Tyler Warren's not there. He'd be a home run pick at 14. I don't think they reach for Loveland at 14, even though that's probably their biggest positional need. But I think what they end up doing here is addressing their need of an off-ball linebacker by taking the best literal off-ball linebacker in this draft, and that's Jihad Campbell out of Bama. And like I said earlier, Jalen Walker to me is more of an edge, like a Micah Parsons kind of guy, rather than a true pure linebacker like Jihad Campbell is. But I think this would be a great pick for Indy. Obviously addressing a huge need in their front 7, getting a guy who can be like the field general for that defense right there. And then next we got Atlanta. I think Atlanta ends up going D-line. Their offense is pretty much set, at least if you're going to, I don't think set enough where they wouldn't use a first-round pick on an offensive player. And I think what they end up going, their secondary is pretty well off right now too, but I think what they do here is take Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M edge. So yeah, this guy's got that crazy athletic ceiling. He definitely does not have the numbers from college to back up being a first-round pick. I think a total of 4.5 sacks throughout his college career and less than 50 tackles, if I'm not mistaken. But he's got that 6'5" frame, pretty good combine. And a lot of edges in this draft are guys who seem more of like you're banking on their upside rather than their production in college. And if you're going to do that, you might as well bank on the guy with the biggest frame, biggest athletic upside in Shamar Stewart and seeing if you can develop him into being a scary force on the D-line. So I think that's a good pick for Atlanta. Go for that potential. And then next we got the Cardinals. So I'm pretty set on the Cardinals going interior D-line here. Their interior D-line is really weak, and there's some good guys, and no DTs have been taken yet. So they get first dibs on whoever they want. And that person for them is going to be, if I can ever find them on this list. Am I tripping? Where's Walter Nolan? Here we go. Okay, Ole Miss DT, big old boy over there in the interior D line. I think this guy, again, like Shamar Stewart, if you're gonna bank on a defensive tackle in this draft, go for the biggest guy with the biggest athletic upside, and that's Walter Nolan. Not much more to be said here. If you haven't watched this film, definitely recommend doing so. And then we go, so 3 straight picks on defense, bringing us to Cincinnati, a team, if they do not take defense, their fans need a riot because, god damn, they need to take defense. So with that being said, Cincinnati here, I have them taking Nick Emanwari out of South Carolina. He was the captain over at South Carolina last year. This guy had an insane combine. He is a safety who will make a difference everywhere on the field in a defense. I know Malachi Starks is ahead of him on big boards, but I think ultimately when it comes to draft night, teams are going to take E-Man over Malachi Starks. They're going to bank on what they saw at that combine and his leadership qualities at South Carolina last year. He had picks, he had hella tackles, he was a force on blitz plays, and yeah, this is a home run pick. I think this is a guy that can help get that Cincinnati defense back on track. You just need to get some playmakers on that defense, and he is the definition of a playmaker back there in the secondary. So that's what we got at 17. And now we have Miami who traded back. So I think Miami will be really happy here because they don't address O-line here, even though they could. They address another position of need, and that's their D-line, and more so their interior D-line, even though I think they could go edge if they wanted to. And with that being said, I have them taking Kenneth Grant, big DT out of Michigan. This guy seems like a pretty polished prospect coming into this draft, and I think he could be an immediate contributor for any team that takes him, and especially in Miami where they have a pretty good system going. I think this is a really good pick for Miami, especially trading back, picking up that extra second, which I think the second and third round are really solid this year with a lot of depth. So they can definitely utilize that extra second round pick to address even O-line if they want to, their secondary, literally whatever. There's a lot of options there. So the next we go to Tampa, and I'm pretty certain Tampa will go secondary here, or they could go edge. Either way, I'm pretty sure they're going defense. And for this draft, I have them addressing their secondary by taking Jahdae Barron, absolute stud, lockdown corner out of Texas. I think this guy will fit in really well with Tampa and bring in a true lockdown corner to that secondary. Bring some youth to that defense, which they definitely need right now. And yeah, not much more to be said here. I think that's a great pick for Tampa. And then next we got over at number 20, the Denver Broncos. So I've said this over and over again, and this pick has not changed since I started doing my mock drafts. And I'm going to say it again. So the Broncos O-line was amazing last year, top 10, potentially, or arguably top 5 in the league. But what they were lacking was a true home run threat at running back. Javonte Williams is good, but he hasn't been the same since those injuries to his knees. And what the Broncos do here is, obviously, if somehow Tyler Warren was at 20, that would be the pick. But honestly, it's not as big of a need anymore with Evan Ingram there now. That gives them that receiving tight end they need. So scratch that. Obviously, if Tyler Warren's, he's not going to make it to 20, so let's not even talk about that. But they're not going Loveland. But they will go running back. And the running back I have them taking is Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. I think this gives them their home run back. They don't have a true running back one right now after losing Javonte, and they haven't done anything to address that position, like for real done anything in free agency. So that definitely has me thinking they're going to go running back in this draft, especially here in that 20. This is a very, very, very good running back class. There's going to be guys going in the 4th round who are going to be true RB1s in this league. So they get their hands on a guy who could be an upper echelon running back in an already stacked running back class. So great pick here for the Broncos. Now we go to Pittsburgh. So we're approaching this mock draft with the assumption that Aaron Rodgers will be a Steeler come draft night. Because like I said, I think if he wants to play football this year, he's going to have to sign with them because there's no other team at this point who will take him as their starting quarterback. The Vikings are most likely riding with JJ. They invested all that into him. You got to see what he has. Unless there's some injury concern, which we haven't heard anything of. So with that being said, I think Pittsburgh ends up going and bringing some youth to their D-line. They got some guys there. They're still capable of playing good football in the NFL, but they're getting old, and if some of them go down, you're in trouble. Again, like I said, this is a league where you're playing Lamar twice a year and Joe Burrow, you want to go get them and stop those high-powered offenses. And what they do is they go Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. Another first-round talent here. I think this is a pretty safe pick for him here. And, yeah, not much to be said there. But then we go on to 22. So the Chargers could go they could go interior D-line. They could go secondary. And what they really need to do is they need to get Herbert some help. They have Ladd, obviously, who was a really good pick last year, who balled out. But outside of Ladd, no one's like that scary as a receiving threat. Will Dissly is not a great receiving tight end, and Mike Williams is back. He's not the same Mike Williams, so I don't think they go. They could go Matthew Golden here. I will say, but I think what they do is they address a big need of tight end and go Colston Loveland out of Michigan. This gives them a solid 2 tight end set. Will Dissly is a phenomenal blocking tight end, which will be huge because Colston can be their receiving tight end in a 2 tight end set, and they have their blocking tight end. So I think this will work out great for them. Give Herbert another solid weapon out there. And yeah, take some attention off McConkey. But that's what we got at 22. And now at 23, we got Green Bay. And I think Green Bay stops beating around the bush this year and takes a receiver in the first round. And this is a really good spot for Matthew Golden. So it seems like he is going to be the second receiver taken in this draft. And yeah, I have no complaints about that. I do like Egbuka a lot, but yeah, ultimately it does look like Matthew Golden will be the second receiver taken. And yeah, this would be great. You know, Christian Watson's got some injury concern. And then you just got like Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Dubes, and Christian Watson, who all disappear for 2 weeks, and then out of nowhere, one of them or Jayden Reed will ball out, and they'll be like, oh, maybe we have our wide receiver 1, especially with Jayden Reed. But then they all disappear again for 2 weeks, and then someone else steps up that third week. But I think they need to stop that and like stop this puzzle piece of receivers that they've been avoiding for years. And yeah, go Matthew Golden, get Jordan Love, a legit wide receiver 1, hopefully, and yeah, that's all I can say for Green Bay right there. They could go corner here, but with both Jahdae Barron gone and Will Johnson, I think you go receiver. And then next we go to Minnesota, and I have Minnesota going safety here and Malachi Starks. Home run pick here. They need some youth on that defense, especially in that secondary and especially safety. And I think Malachi Starks is going to do everything they need for him there. And like I said, I mean, if Malachi Starks is the first safety taken, then I think Eamon Warrior is definitely going here if he's made it this far, which I think he would. I don't think the Chargers would take him, and neither would the Steelers. Or honestly, the Bucks could, but whatever safety's here, if there is one of the two, I think they go here, ultimately to the Vikings. And then we move on to 25. So another team like the Seahawks who needs to address their O-line. So they brought in a bunch of like patchy kind of guys at the tackle position this offseason. And they're trying. They know their O-line's an issue, and this is one of the reasons Stroud suffered last year, is just poor O-line play. And you don't want that to happen. You want him to get back on track. You want Joe Mixon to have room to do Joe Mixon things. And he's getting up there. He's gonna be 29, so you need to protect him and Stroud. And with that being said, I think they go guard with Tyler Booker, solid prospect out of Bama. This gives them a good interior guy in that O-line to plug and play with those tackles they brought in this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans take another O-lineman in like the 3rd round or something, or even the 4th round, because that O-line's far from fixed, and it's going to need to be fixed if they want to be a playoff team or a true threat as a playoff team. And then next we got the Rams. So I like this. I love the Rams as a trade back team because they have needs on defense, no doubt. But with the way the board's been falling, there's some phenomenal players here, don't get me wrong. There's also some phenomenal players in the top half of the 2nd round. And I think if the Rams could add another pick over there in the top half, they'd be really happy. They can take multiple guys in the 2nd round who can make a difference on this team. And this is already a front office that's really competent and usually takes really good players and has a good scouting department. So with that being said, I think this is a team with McVay too, comfortable with trading back, and they're gonna trade back with the Bears. That's what I have. So what I have is the Rams trading back from 26 to 39. So they're going back 13 picks into the second round, and they're in return receiving 39 and 72, which is a third round pick in the first half of the third round from the Bears. And the Rams give up their 26, their first round pick, and they have multiple of these day 3 picks. So I could see them giving up one of their 5th round picks, we'll say 190. And trade's been rejected. Yeah, this platform does this sometimes. I promise you I'm not fleecing anyone. This is like a pretty comparable trade to what we see in real life in this area of drafts. But so 26 and 5th round pick for 39, 72. And I'm just going to throw this second in just to push it through. But in real life, obviously they're not doing that. But the Bears move up here, and I have them taking a running back, and that running back is Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State. So we have 2 Ohio State running backs. We don't know who's going to go first. Judkins, in my opinion, is more of a 3-down back, whereas Henderson has that upside as a receiving threat, and not a guy I would rely on as a 3-down back because of his injury concern. Not a knock against him as a player. I think he's a phenomenal player with a high ceiling, but I think you already have DeAndre Swift, who is a player with injury concern, but has that receiving threat and is more of a guy you want to bring in for plays that are more designed for his play style. And with Judkins, this is a guy who's got, again, running back 1 potential, but you can use him on every down and has way less injury concern coming out of Ohio State. So, I mean, we know Ben Johnson loved his 2-back set in Detroit with 2 stellar running backs. And I think he's going to try to incorporate some of the same stuff here. And honestly, I mean, the Bears could even go running back at 10 here. If Gentry's there, he's going there. But even if he's gone, I could see like Omarion Hampton going there. But yeah, I think they trade up here and get another running back. And another thing with Swift is if they have a potential out on Swift next year, they can cut him with only, I think, $1.6 million in dead cap. So if there's some injury problems, if he's not the guy, they have the replacement here in Judkins. So that's what we got at 26 with the trade up. And then we got Baltimore at 27. So Baltimore can go secondary. They can go D-line. They can go O-line. But I think they focus on the defense here and take Mikael Williams out of Georgia. This is honestly the furthest I've had him fall in any of my mock drafts. But just with the way the board's been falling, I could see it happening here to the back end of the first round. But I don't see him making it out the first round for sure. And I think this is a great spot for him to land. And this is a pretty safe pick for the Ravens, I think. This gives them a guy who can be a replacement for a lot of their older guys on contract years in that front 7 going into this upcoming offseason. So, yeah, good pick here for the Ravens. And then we got another team who I think can go edge. They need to get Aiden Hutchinson, a running mate, over there to wreak some havoc over in a pretty tough division, obviously, with some good quarterbacks and some good teams. And I have them here going Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College. I'm really high on Ezeraku, and I know a lot of teams are. And I think he ultimately will go at the end of this first round. And if not, whatever team gets him at the beginning of the second round, it's a steal. But I think this is a player that the Lions are going to end up developing really well. Give Hutch a true running mate out there at edge. And, yeah, solid home run pick, in my opinion, for them there. And now another team who I'm very, very happy with trading back in a lot of my mocks. Because Washington is they're pretty – I mean, we know what they did last year with entire new coaching staff, rookie quarterback. And their roster has holes, but it doesn't have a lot of holes, you know. So I think they could definitely afford to trade back here. And I have them trading back with New England in this mock draft. So they only go back 9 spots. They pick up one of New England's their 3rd round pick No, the fourth round pick at the end of the fourth round. So the fourth round ends at pick 128, I believe. Yeah, 128. So this is like middle of the pack, fourth round. And so they get a second and a fourth for their first, which is pretty like when the Panthers traded up last year to move up for Xavier Legette around this part of the draft, they gave up a first and a fourth, or a second and a fourth as well. So they're giving up a second and a fourth, and just in case, if this trade doesn't push it, I'm gonna throw the second in, but obviously they're not gonna do that. Bro, rejected. Give me a second here. Let's try this again. I can never tell with this website sometimes. All right, so we go 29. Okay, obviously they're not going to give up their first. That would be ludicrous. But yeah, we have the Patriots moving up here, and they continue to get Drake May some help on that offense, and they do that by going Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Like I said, I would hate to see him go over Matthew Golden in drafts, but ultimately I don't think that's happening. But he is a guy, like I said, this is kind of like the Legette trade last year. The Panthers knew they needed to get Bryce some help. They went up into the end of the first round and got a guy who they believe in. And I think this is a solid move for the Pats. You know, they brought Diggs in this offseason, but I don't think Diggs coming off that knee injury is magically going to solve this Pats offense. They need true weapons for Drake May. They need to give Drake May an environment where he can succeed, especially with the guys that are around him on the field on offense. So they do this, and I don't think Egbuka makes it to them in the second round. You might ask, like, why don't they just wait? I think the Titans could go quarterback or wide receiver. I think the Browns could go wide receiver. I think the G-Men could go wide receiver. I mean, there's teams that could definitely go wide receiver. So they just secure their guy. They move up and secure their guy here. And next we got the Bills. Bills definitely go defense in my opinion, and I think what they do is they go Siobhan Revel out of ECU, or Siobhan Revel. Cornerback, he would no doubt in my mind be going earlier in this draft if he didn't have that injury that ended his season last year. Pretty significant injury, but it looks like he'll be okay. And this ends up being, as long as he's healthy and pans out, which I hope he does, this will end up being a steal for the Bills here. Guy's got the frame, this ball hawk skills. He's got it all to be an NFL corner for sure. And yeah, the Bills walk away happy with this pick. Just got to hope his health holds up, and I hope it does, and I bet it will. So that's what we got at 30. At 31, we got KC, and I have the Chiefs going O-line here. Give Mahomes some more protection there. I think the Chiefs, obviously we know what the Chiefs are, but they use this draft to retool in the trenches on offense and defense, and they start with the offense here and just go Josh Simmons. Solid spot to take him here at the end of the first round. Definitely a guy that's end of first round, top half of second round, type of potential, or that's where he kind of falls. And this is a good spot to take him over some of these other tackles. I mean, they could go Josh Connerly out of Oregon. There's a couple other sleeper guys in this draft who I think could go here, but ultimately I think they go Josh Simmons here. And then Eagles, I'm pretty confident, end up going edge to replace some of the guys like Josh Sweat they lost in free agency this year. And I think they're going to go for the upside here, and they're going to go Mike Green. So Mike Green had obviously a crazy amount of sacks last year, and I know some people are really high on him, like even taking him in the top half of the first round. But I think that small school bias is going to hurt him a little bit, and he has some concerning things when he had transferred out of Virginia because of some not so good things. You can search it up, or alleged at least, and I think that will cause him not to go in that first half with that and the small school bias. But Mike Green here at 32, and you may be wondering, where is James Pierce Jr.? And I've said it, if you haven't watched my last mock draft, reports have came out of Tennessee that the coaching staff did not like James Pierce Jr. He was a locker room cancer essentially, and they even said they couldn't wait till he graduated. It was that bad. So he's had horrible character grades in his interviews at coming into this draft. So I think that's going to cause him to fall out of the first round. And, hopefully whatever team takes him in the second round can get him back on track and, fix his character up, because he'd be a steal in that case. He's got the potential there to be a great NFL edge, but give him some money, man, in the NFL, and, guys get a little crazy. So we'll see what happens with him, but that's the reason why I don't have him going in the first round. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you happy with what I did with your favorite teams? Are there any guys you think I missed on here? Are there any guys that went too high, too low, should have gone in the first round, shouldn't have gone in the first round? Let me know. And I got a couple of videos coming up that are going to be bangers once I get the time to get them in. But hope to see you all back on here soon, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.